Hi, I am doing a presentation over whether violent video games cause violence and aggression in people. Violent video games has been a debated topic for almost 15 years. This debate started when a game called Death Race was released in 1976. The point of this game was to run over screaming gremlins with a car, which would then turn them into gravestones. Doing that gave the player points. You had to try to survive as long as you could. This is one of the first games to be criticized on mainstream media for its violence. This started the violent video game debate that violent video games cause children to become more violent in real life. As the years passed, technology got more and more advanced, especially in the video entertainment area, and the graphics naturally advanced with them, which caused violent scenes to be more clear. That sparked controversy that puts violent games in a wrong light as a thing that causes aggressive behavior. Games that are good examples of those are Mortal Kombat, the Grand Theft Auto series, Dead Space, God of War, and many more. So in Germany, there was a study that focused on the fMRI of gamers and non-gamers, and found that gamers had the exact same neural responses to a set of emotionally proactive images as the non-gamers. In this study, gamers were defined as people who had been playing games for 2 or more hours a day for at least 4 years straight. Each participant was asked how they would feel in situations produced by the photographs, while having their brains scanned by an fMRI machine. The responses were then compared together by non-gamer and gamer. The study provided that violent video games do not affect one's aggressive behavior, in fact decreases the aggressive behavior. Another study had kids play a violent game for a while and later had to do a type of word puzzle. The puzzle was made so the kids could find aggressive or non-aggressive words in the puzzle. They got their results and compared them to another similar study. The game they used have ragdoll physics that make the characters more realistic and more human-like. They also had a game that involved avoiding vehicle collisions and the participant playing another game as a mouse trying to avoid a cat. The participants were later asked to identify in a picture if they either saw a vehicle or an animal, and they saw no improvement in the reaction time. This was to prove that these games' realism did not connect to the real world, and this kids would connect the violence in games to the real world. The other study had a game that the participants used war strategies in a turn-based game to try and beat the opposing side to win the game. Both games were particularly violent in the functions and gameplay they used. They found that there was no rise in aggressive results whatsoever. In another study done by Oxford Internet Institute and the University of Oxford, the study used the information from children's parents and careers to judge the level of aggressive behavior in their children. The study also used PEGI and ESRB rating systems. The study found that statistically the findings in aggressive behavior were insignificant. In the study, the parents and careers did not find significant increase in aggressive or violent behavior in the children studied. I'm not even going to try that name, but it's a researcher, spelled Przybylski. He points out that this is not the first study to show these kinds of results, not to mention that we have all counter-studies that actually show that playing video games has clear cognitive benefits, so it is about time that video games were no longer demonized as the cause for all of society's woe and accepted for they are. That's his quote. These people believe that violent video games are not the cause of aggressive or violent behavior, and that other cause should be searched and resolved. So in the recent times, like a couple years ago, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, brought back to the controversy of violent video games, and that they cause aggressive in the behavior of children. but it's very hard to tell if video games are actually the cause of violent behavior, because there's so many other different kinds of factors that could go into what causes violent behavior. James Ivory, excuse me, not sick. James Ivory, a professor and researcher director at Virginia Tech, told CBS News, "When it comes to serious criminal violence, there's virtually no evidence that video games matter." He said he's determined that a lot of things influence violent crime, but the media we consume is not one of them. There are several things that influence violent crime, like poverty, substance abuse, and child abuse. James says that one reason we point at video games being the problem is because we do not want to talk about other things we know are more relevant to cause these violent behaviors. About 165 million people play video games in the United States, and billions play worldwide. But other countries do not connect video games to violent criminal acts. There are many ways someone can become violent and aggressive that have nothing to do with the involvement of video games. And a few examples are mental illness, abuse, poverty, drugs and alcohol, depression, racism, politics, and overpopulation. Mental illness makes people's cognitive decisions distorted, and commonly they don't know what they're doing, or lack the empathy to see the wrongdoing of their actions. Though it's not a big factor of violent crime, it can still happen. Abuse, especially as a child, can cause anger and pain, and later in life can cause them to take that anger and pain out on the people they care about. Poverty can force people to make decisions such as assault, robbery, and domestic abuse. Drugs and alcohol, they blur one's judgment, and they can have serious violent acts while under the influence. Racism has been one that has been considerably decreased, but still sadly remains today. As people hate each other and they're just violent towards each other. Politics, they get very heated in mudslinging matches or outright violence like riots, brawls, and vandalism. And overpopulation can cause people to be violent because there's limited resources in In relation to other countries, kids play the same amount of video games, and yet many other countries do not have as much death to gun statistics as the United States, and that can be attributed to how lenient the U.S. is with their gun laws compared to other countries in the world. So there has been many violent video games that have caused controversy on over the media, and many events have also raised controversy on violent video games. So again, other countries have strict gun laws, and the United States doesn't. And other countries have less statistically gun deaths related compared to the United States. So, violent video games, do they cause violent behavior or aggression later on in life, well, it's been found many times that violent video games are not the cause of growing violent behavior, as there are too many other factors that cloud really that comparison, as all of those are more of a reason that people actually cause violent acts. And that's my speech. I hope you enjoyed.